The more you can escape the trap of mainstream media, the better off you'll be with your productivity and then obviously your results. Just get rid of mainstream media. It will not contribute towards your wealth creation. Learn to say no to things that you know are not going to give you what you want in the long run before you're getting what you want now. You have to live the life you want to be living before you actually achieve it. What up, dude? I'm alive.
I know. You're a missing person recently, man. So super excited to have you on the show here today on this episode. And dude, I'm going to let you take the lead, man. People have been starving for your information. And obviously we caught the man, the myth, the legend on today's episode. So how you been?
Really good. I feel like Bigfoot. Actually, I feel like I could be in the witness protection program. Honestly, it's been a series of stops from Colorado to now New York, where I am, that have all been super off grid. All this boondocking, a lifestyle that's pretty new to me. I grew up camping. My dad was an Eagle Scout, so I got to spend a lot of time traditional camping, but this whole glamping concept and some of the locations I'm staying at, I would have never expected. I'm doing it all for free too, which is really cool. I can't wait to get into content about that in future videos, but I just kind of wanted to fill everybody in, had an opportunity to plug in, get uploads, get this content out to everyone, which is unusual. So thought what better opportunity to say, hey, here's everything that's going on in my life. And a lot of it should be able to help other people do what they want in their life too. So
fantastic. Well, fill us in on your journey so far. I mean, obviously you and I keep in touch, from time to time. Obviously you're a brother of mine, and everyone's interested. Where's Matthew Pillmore been? We cut that video a couple months ago. What are you doing?
Let's set the record straight that we're not actual brothers.
Not actual brothers.
A lot of people think we are. They think we look alike.
I'm the poor man's Matthew Pillmore.
You're the older, wiser Matthew Pillmore. So at the end of the day, we sort of got our lives in a position where we got rid of all the traditional home style living, and we moved into an RV. So we live in a fifth wheel full time now. It's always been a dream of mine. I didn't come into it with any preconceived notions it would be easy. The learning curve has been quite sharp, and everything I thought would suck about it does, and everything I thought would be awesome about it is. And the good far outweighs the bad, and we're having a total blast doing it. But yeah, we've essentially landed for now in New York. We're going to be heading down the coast to Florida here shortly. And I'm looking at doing a 1031 exchange on a long-term rental property I have in Colorado for another short-term rental out in Florida, because things have been going so well with the Airbnb business. We're going to get into a lot of detail about that in other videos too. Again, I don't want to get into the specific numbers to great detail, but let's just say that we're at somewhere in the ballpark of north of $14,000 in guest revenues just this month. So we're very happy. That's one property. And the net cash flow on that this month is going to be more than 10K, less than 11, but more than $10,000 in overall net cash flow before we pay for our life on the road. And life on the road has become, outside of the cost of the rig and the truck, along with the cost of the gasoline, almost free. And I'm gonna give that resource away too, because I really am staying in the most beautiful areas through the country, and I think people who are either attracted to the RV life or living in some sort of a recreational vehicle or know somebody else who is would really benefit from this tool. So I'm going to give that away in another video too.
What's the journey been like? What are you doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm just really reconnecting. My fiance is a self-leadership specialist. Her channel, Self Leadership Global, go check it out. Kellyanne is incredible at what she does. And I've been taking a lot of time to reconnect spiritually, which I haven't done really ever in my life outside of just some of the books that I've been consuming over the past few years since knowing her, and Brix, and a couple of my other friends are really into the spiritual aspect of wealth creation. So I've been working on myself and incorporating it into the really practical numbers engineering type mentality that I sort of have been blessed with. But frankly, that practicality has hurt me a lot in my life. And so getting acquainted with spirituality and gaining intelligence there. It has served me super well. As far as, my pathway, I want to live as freely as I can. I want to be as geographically mobile as I can be right now. We don't plan to have children, which I think makes it easier. I don't think it's necessarily gives me the advantage. Kellyanne's sister and brother-in-law travel with their 9-year-old, my nephew, and they make it work. They're on the road full time in a Class A. So we just want this. We want to take advantage of this freedom right now, and that means I have to be focused on maximizing efficiency in terms of my finances. So when it comes to practicing what we teach here on the channel, it's really important that I uphold the principles of what I've been sharing here for 10 years, more now than ever before, because I don't have the bandwidth, resources, availability, or even interest in being as actively involved as I have been in prior chapters. So this is a really cool time for me to grow everything. And frankly, we're more profitable than ever before. I'm able to do it more hands-off than ever before, and that's going to be outlined in some of these future videos as to how. But maybe we should just go over a quick summary of that. Are you open to that?
Yeah, brother. The stage is yours right now, man. We're just excited to have you on the channel here. People love you on this. Obviously, the founder and originator of VIP Financial Education. We love getting your comments below. Go ahead and smash that thumbs up below. Obviously, we've got Matthew on here. I can't imagine more thumbs up smashes than on a video like this with you, brother. So
well, we'll see. I appreciate those of you guys who have been along for our journey, because I truly do feel retired, and I want to empower you. I'm wearing one of Kellyanne's Empower Others shirts today. It really is showcasing the fact that while the RV life has treated me well mentally, it's really not done any favors for the waistline. Man, I weighed myself the other day when I was down visiting Brix, because of course my best friend Robert has a fitness channel here on YouTube, Brix Fitness. So not only did he point it out, he's like, how are you feeling about that? And he's talking directly to my gut. And then I've actually had 2 people in the last 2 months poke my belly. It's never happened in my entire life where somebody actually takes their finger and stabs me. So, I'm conscious of it, but at the end of the day, we hit the road after putting our property on the market as a short-term rental, and we've been practicing that now for a couple of years and really honing in our systems, our processes, and templating everything out. And that property today is outperforming anything we could have ever imagined. 10 years ago, if you told me you could generate what we're making on just one house, doing it through just VRBO, I don't even Airbnb that property, it's purely VRBO. I would have laughed at you. It just is outrageous, the amount of money that's coming in, enough to live on, truly, not just myself, but I pay the bulk of the expenses, since it's all sort of funneled through that short-term rental business, and I've kind of dragged Kellyanne through this adventure with me. So I choose to pick up most of the cost there, and it's well more than enough to live on and have a surplus. But in addition to that, I also started another business that I mentioned not long back. I guess it's been a few months since I've talked about it in a video. But in December, we launched a drain business, pretty out of left field. Never anticipated being in the drain industry, but we do scoping and hydrojetting for residential and commercial property. And when you have a drain problem, it's quite an emergency. So we are doing very, very well with that, and I can't wait to share the results. Sneak peek, we almost broke $38,000 last month in June, and we're doing spectacularly this month as well, of which north of 80% is profit. So I'm going to go into detail on that with you guys, because frankly, it's almost entirely passive to me, and I think will help encourage you to really be out of the box when you're figuring out solutions to your short-term cash flow. And that's my main priority. Whereas I think a lot of people commit most of their time to their W-2'd wages as their short-term cash flow solution. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just like there's not anything wrong with me committing attention and energy and effort and resources, stress, sleepless nights, brain damage towards an income stream like this here on YouTube, as an example, which we've generated revenue from for 10 years. But it's not going to ever be the only thing I do. And I'll diversify into something like a drain business, but it won't be the only thing I do. So I'll diversify into an Airbnb, but it won't be the only thing I do. So that's why I have long-term rentals. Now, the long-term rental side and the crypto investing that I'm doing, I split off into a second area, which I consider to be the long-term net worth investing side, right?
Crypto is back over 30.
Yay. I mean, listen, it's been a wild and expensive ride the last couple of months. And I think this goes into what I really wanted to talk with people about today, which is the more you can escape the trap of mainstream media, the better off you'll be with your productivity and then obviously your results. It's no secret that we're dealing with the most FUD we've ever seen in our lives. You know what FUD means, Michael?
Enlighten me, please.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt is what the media, of course, preys on or uses as bait. And the more that we become addicted to that fear and the uncertainty, the more we tend to sort of keep our eyes on that media. It's like this insane addiction that happens. It's really toxic. It's no different than a drug.
I think people are at this point, they're tired of it. And you have in my opinion, a great life because you are not connected to that. So, when you wake up every 3-4 days, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? How does that relate to your investments? If you could talk on the channel about that'd be phenomenal. Well,
my way is my way, and everybody else is going to have their own roadmap, and it'll be different than mine. So I don't try to tell people where to invest just because I'm, considerably bullish in cryptocurrencies and have been now for almost a year. Doesn't mean that somebody else has to be, or even should be. I think doing your own research is really important. But doing your own research, where that research leads you to that mainstream media outlet, is often going to disrupt what ultimately could have been a really great long-term solution for you and your family. And so I try to keep my research neutral, and I am running towards the deal breaker. I want to find the deal breaker. It's not as if I'm only advocating for something. I want to hear the arguments against it. And so no question about it, it is important to spend the time to dig in. But, really tuning out of the news and being on the road, I deactivated my subscription to my various news applications on my phone too, which helped a lot. Just simply deleted the news applications entirely and stopped paying for that crap, man. I frankly fall into the addiction aspect of it like anybody else does. So the more I can stop as cold turkey as possible, the healthier I feel. And being on the road now, it's given me such a clearer mind to focus on what actually do generate results, what does generate results rather. And, that's kind of been my approach, and it's worked out really well, man. I mean, I just feel like people would feel better if they realize that focusing on things that are beyond your control, it will never contribute towards your life. You can only focus on the things that are within your control. So it doesn't mean to ignore breaking news where, for instance, Denver at one point, created an ordinance against short-term renting in the Denver proper area. And those who were pursuing that business model could have ultimately ended up out of business. And so you do have to see what might be coming that doesn't necessarily favor the goals that you have. And that does require you to pay attention to things that are happening in your space. But as far as what is happening inside politics and the he said, she said, and the left and the right, I think it's hurting people a lot right now.
What I love about you is just how candid you are. And that's what the channel has loved about you for years. You talk very openly, about your investments. I'm trying to get better about that. You and I talked earlier this morning, before we decided last minute to cut this video. I don't openly share those things. I'm going to do better or get better ultimately about doing those things. I approached you with a biz op earlier this week that you ultimately declined. We were talking about hard money lending, which I am a hard money lender, and you've got different approaches to that. Obviously, you have a different take on that, and you thought that your money would be better invested elsewhere, and you dissected it. You did your research. We're always going to advocate people on the channel. Obviously, we're going to do the research on your behalf the best we can, but you declined it, and that was a 10% interest with 2 points.
Yeah, solid investment overall, but you're right. Again, everybody's roadmap is different. I still always fall back to the concepts, the overall philosophies on this channel, which, to remind folks, or for those of you who are new, welcome. We talk about being in the best position possible to showcase our borrowing strength, right? We want lender worthiness. We want good credit. We want good credibility to those who have access to money that might serve us well, so that in step 2, we can borrow money and gain access to liquidity that we can obviously use to our benefit and put to work, which leads us obviously to the 3rd step, which is to grow our cash flow. This business that I started with a partner in December, I'm purely the capital investor. Because of my borrowing strength, I was able to come up with the money necessary, which was $50,000, in order to become a 50-50 owner of a business that he does all the work for. We've now completed 160 jobs. We didn't start actually servicing clients until the last week of February. And ultimately, those 160 jobs have produced for us north of $85,000, of which about $75K is profit. I split that. That $75K obviously brings in $37.5, and we haven't even hit our 5th month yet. And I ultimately only had $10K of skin in the game. The other 40 was a promissory note that was lent to the business that's being repaid as a hard money loan from my access to the business. My access only cost me 6.5. I'm charging 10. So there's even a 3.5% margin on the promissory note that allowed this business to get off the ground. And let me tell you something, while that sounds like it might be one-sided and ultimately quite favorable for me in this deal, it is. And yet my partner has broken 10,000.
He's ecstatic. And I've talked to him. He's ecstatic about the returns.
He has broken $10,000 in revenues one time in his life. He hit, last month, north of $15,000 in revenues. That's never happened ever for him in life. He's only broken $5,000 in revenues twice in the last 2 years. And ultimately, again, $85,000 with a $75,000 profit. And that's after insurance. That's after entity registration. That's after permitting. That's after contractors. That's after equipment rentals. That is money in our pocket, $37,500 each. And again, we're approaching the 5th month anniversary here. So let's talk about what that total looks like here. 37.
Yeah, break that down, brother. I'd love to.
Divided by 5 months. He's at $7,500 a month on average right now, from the very first month.
With a 10K investment.
No, he had nothing in. That's my piece too. So $7,500 a month went to me also with a 10K investment in. Correct. So I'm the money guy. He's the blood, sweat, and tears guy. And he couldn't be happier. And obviously, when compared to investment options, it should be quite easy to see that to expect better than this would be unrealistic. This is as good as it could get, even though you might get luckier than this down the road. But we're very happy, and it's in an industry I completely didn't anticipate being in, and it requires very little work. Both of the businesses that I just described, where I'm now realizing somewhere in the ballpark of $30,000 per month total for the both of them, are taking me somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 or 10 minutes each day for my part. My part is interactive oversight, but it doesn't require a ton of proactivity or effort because everything's already been put into place. I call this progressive income. It wasn't that it didn't take a lot of work. It took a lot of work for a temporary period of time. In the case of the drain business, that was somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 hours a week for about 3 months. In the case of the short-term rental property, it was 30 to 40 hours a week for probably closer to 5 months if I count the pre-closing time that I put in, because I had everything in the shopping cart to completely furnish and outfit this property from scratch. Not one item in that property was used before it was put in there. All came out of a box brand new. So just my Amazon account alone had over $30,000 worth of items in the shopping cart that were set to go to purchase 2 days before we closed on the house. That way, after closing, boxes were arriving the same day. So at the end of the day, it was a very time-intensive process. It took a ton of upfront forethought, strategizing, consideration, working with my mentors and my coaches, working with my business partners if I had them, talking about it with absolutely everybody I could get in front of me. And then we set it and forget it. And 5 minutes a day at this point to earn 5 minutes each to earn 15,000 each, estimated, right? It's right around in that range for each one. All I have to have is enough service to shoot off texts at this point. I don't even need service for phone calls. And so what you and I do on this is completely outside of that. Everything else I do is outside of that. It's a completely free life where I can say no to things, even if they pay really, really well. And I've said no to things, including this investment opportunity. Whereas before, you said
no to me today.
Yeah, most days. No, it's at the end of the day, it's great to have the privilege to say no. And what's really ironic about that, I've learned too, if we can at least create, again, some takeaways from this video. Again, first takeaway, shut the news off. Seriously, just get rid of mainstream media. It will not contribute towards your wealth creation. Secondly is learn to say no to things that you know are not going to give you what you want in the long run before you're getting what you want now. You have to live the life you want to be living before you actually achieve it. And sometimes that's just headspace and mentality. Sometimes that's picturing yourself healthier, right? In order for me to get more fit again, I would have to see myself, and it's a psychological vision board in a way, right?
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. So obviously you and I bounce ideas back and forth, investment opportunities. You and I have known each other for years at this point. So I bounce ideas off you, you bounce them off of me. They're not always a great fit. What you have ultimately achieved is your dream of really geographic freedom. So at this point, and I'm in the same boat, and we're not out here to flaunt anything, but if I don't make another nickel or you don't make another nickel in your life, we're going to be free to live the lives that we lead or that we want to live. And
I tend to disagree with that because my investments still have to produce, or I'm drawing against them. If I took everything out off of a net worth standpoint and tried to live the life I want for the rest of my life, I think it's very likely I would run out of money, because I don't want to live the RV life for the rest of my life.
I'll give you a hard money loan, like today.
That's fine. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn around and figure out how to turn that hard money loan into considerable money. I will then turn around and pay your hard money loan back before you thought I ever could, because it still incorporates the accelerated debt elimination aspect. I'm still accelerating the elimination of my mortgages, while there's a very strong case to be made that my money's better served elsewhere. It's a balance across the spectrum of wealth creation, which means constantly prioritizing debt elimination while at the same time constantly prioritizing income and asset acquisition. You have to be acquiring income and assets while at the same time focusing on your debts. Both of those take money. So it's about how to balance the distribution process among those. And take my truck, for example. The truck that I use to pull this rig I'm sitting in right now is a beast. It's a Ram Laramie 3500 dually. This diesel pusher, this thing is when attached to this rig, tugging 16,000 pounds behind it. And it ultimately ended up being a more expensive vehicle than I kind of ever really expected to purchase. It was about $85,000. Buying vehicles in that range has never really appealed to me much. I certainly appreciate nice and expensive cars.
You're a Jeep guy.
Jeep guy, yes. And hold on to one of those long enough, you'll spend $85,000, but not off the lot usually. At the end of the day, that truck with an $80,000 starting promissory note is now down to about $25,000 since October. So I pay things off ultra quickly while still making a lot of investments into income streams and long-term investments. So that's where I'm spending my focus. I'm taking my time and energy away from mainstream media. I'm putting my time and energy on things I can control, things like cryptocurrencies, which I don't have control over. I'm doing my homework on the front end to make sure that the investment is sound for the long term. If real estate property values were declining right now, it would probably be a better time to buy than if they continue to go up, up, up. And so for people to look at the cryptocurrency world and push the panic button simply because they see a decline in values and a bear market really arguably upon us is the opposite of what we want to be doing as investors. As long-term investors, I want to just dollar cost average my way into decades-long wealth. I anticipate cryptocurrencies, blockchain, and DeFi, and these various modern investments to be the future. And so I'm looking way down the road for that money. It's almost a forced savings account. And I've put something close to $10,000 into cryptocurrencies in the last few weeks. So I'm definitely buying heavy, even though often after I put money in, I see an immediate decline in value in for the short term, dollar losing value. So just keep that in mind, guys. That's just my own personal approach. I'm not telling you to invest in cryptos or real estate. I'm saying for me, the secret is filling short-term net cash flow needs through creative ways of putting money and leverage to work where I still gain as much passivity as possible so that I'm able to generate a profit and a cash flow that gives me the choice to invest into something for the long term, like crypto or like real estate. And those are my two long-term investments of choice personally.
Yeah, and we're going to go ahead and drop a video link below. You did a dollar cost averaging video probably a month or so ago, Matthew. It was genius. And you included an app on there where folks can go online. They can figure out what that would be over the long term. Obviously, real estate is super volatile right now. You don't lose money unless you sell. I mean, to be very clear, whether it's real estate, crypto, any other asset class. So, the people that hit that panic button, and we talk oftentimes here on the channel about doom and gloom.
Well, we got to admit, you only lose if you quit in a lot of things in life. If I quit every business that I've started and run when things got hard, I would have taken a lot of L's. And by holding on, adapting to the response of my efforts, right? The universe, the data, the analytics, the audience, and ultimately the bank account are all going to respond to the effort I'm putting in. And if it's a lack of response or a negative response, that doesn't mean to give up. It just means that we need to adapt and to change and to shift. And sometimes it's the smallest tweak that can lead to the best results over time. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you only lose if you do sell something. It doesn't mean that something can't ultimately go to zero, right? I mean, you lost on MySpace either way, right? You lost on Nokia either way. But if you had a diversification of the space, if you were also invested into Amazon, which by the way, to my recollection, lost north of 90% at one point, but ultimately made a lot of people a lot of money. If you were invested into Facebook, if you were invested into Apple, those three wins would far outweigh the L's you took from something like a MySpace or a Nokia investment if you did ride it all the way into the water. So yeah, I mean, you've got to realize that things are going to change. You have to be rolling with the punches, as they say.
You've got to be able to pivot, right? So you're looking at changing market conditions. You're looking at the economy. You're looking at interest rates. If you're in real estate, you're looking at obviously inflation, is a hot topic right now. Quick thoughts on those.
none of it changes anything I'm doing in terms of where my attention and focus goes.
I knew you were going to go there.
Right. I don't care. I just don't really care. Because again, it falls into the camp of no control. And of course, again, this doesn't mean throw your hands up and take a complacent approach towards your tax planning because you don't control the tax code. It means focus within the tax code on the things that you can have an impact through, like your tax plan, and move accordingly. But focusing on the ins and outs and who's right and wrong doesn't necessarily serve me well. So I'm only paying attention to the big picture stuff that allows me to concentrate on those short-term net cash flow income streams and profit margins, and then putting those dollars to work for the long run. And that's where the real estate side comes in. And yes, I am right now, I am not a buyer in real estate. I love real estate. I've been an investor for a long time, but I am not a buyer because it's not a buyer's market. It's a seller's market. Now, I am looking to 1031 a property from one area in Colorado to an area ideally in either Florida or Arizona. And I am hoping to get more square footage for the dollar, but I am also only doing that because of a 1031 exchange, whereby I think I could do much better by way of a short-term rental and replicating what I've done with my current VRBO instead of preserving that as a long-term rental. So that's why I'm doing it. It's an even trade by way of the advantage of being a seller right now and the disadvantage of being a buyer on the other end. It's kind of an even wash other than the costs of the transaction. But by 1031 exchanging, I'm taking advantage of the tax loophole and I'm not paying taxes on that property. And so for me, it's all about a cash flow move, right? If I can go from a marginal cash flow position of $600 or $700 a month to another $10,000 per month net cash flow position like the VRBO I have today, then certainly the dollars make sense by way of losing the costs of the transaction, paying the agents, any closing costs associated with the deal, et cetera. Yeah,
no, 100%. I agree with you on most of those fronts. So just kind of a quick breakdown and then we'll wrap here. I'm an investor. For me, it's about lines in the water. And we talked about this offline today. So you're trying to put multiple lines in the water. Some are going to take, some are not. Kind of explain that volume, to our audience. What are you looking at? When do you pull out? When do you go in?
Sure. That's a great question. It may go deeper than I want to go on this video only because, we've used quite a bit of time today. So why don't we plan to make more videos about that? But you're right. I think, again, the diversification aspect, and I love that metaphor of lines in the water. It's funny. I heard that on a podcast earlier today. So it's always fascinating to me how the most random words, phrases, subject matter can duplicate itself in a day and how often it happens and how quickly it happens. I mean, literally, this was probably 45 minutes ago that I was listening to that podcast and the guy was talking about lines in the water. You're right. I mean, I think with one line in the water, at best you catch a fish, with 10 lines in the water, at best you catch 10. Realistically, it'll be somewhere between 1 and 10, So I like to 10x my odds for sure. I'm an odds kind of person. This is why we've spent a lot of time together talking on other videos about paying attention to trends. I'm a trends-based person. I definitely like to be aware of what is going on in my space. Again, while consciously neglecting or ignoring the mainstream noise, and there is a balance there because sometimes you got to really get into the serious conversations that aren't as favorable to what I'm hoping for. We like to put daisies in our eyeballs and kind of forget that it doesn't always go our way.
Puppy dogs and ice cream, right? And rainbows, right?
Well, and that's where I think backup plans are super important on the front end. So you ask, how do I make decisions as to what lines I cast? It really does boil down to safety. And I'm a conservative person. Ultimately, I'm not prepared at any point in my life to lose everything. It just won't happen because of the plan B's and C's that are there if necessary.
Diversification. I mean, exactly that. You can lose one or two or three of those lines and you have backup plans. You've got A, B, C, D. You can go through the alphabet, and every time you're going to have that kind of safety net, if you will.
Exactly. And beyond that, it's within each decision, there are also safety nets too. It's beyond just the diversification. If a short-term rental property became a long-term rental by accident versus on purpose, I'm already aware of what that property's performance potential is before I commit to the purchase. I'm looking at that property not just as a short-term rental, but what if this becomes an actual traditional rental property? Can it sustain itself from a cash flow standpoint also? So it's not just let me have 10 properties in case one or two of them unravel. It's if this unraveled based on plan A, what are the backup strategies for this specific property or other investment in general? So yeah, I mean, it's very important on the front end to just be a what if type of person. What if it doesn't go as you hope it does? What are your, what is the exit strategy at that point, right? Have a plan in place and try to detach yourself. Look at what's happening in cryptos. The reason cryptocurrencies are continuing to decline is because inexperienced retail buyers like I was 4 years ago are freaking out. People are jumping ship and losing a ton of money in the process. And if they were capable of doing what they committed to themselves to do in the front end of this, where people did not plan to sell unless they made money, but instead chose to because it got too hard, that to me is another major reason that people end up taking L's, is because they quit because of the emotional involvement. You have to be strong enough to have the willpower, or that investment is probably not a good choice for you.
Yeah, don't invest in the first place if it's not money you can't afford to lose. Ultimately, you don't lose money if you don't sell. So very, very specific, great investment advice. We're going to go ahead and cut it off, Matthew. And as a tribute to you, I would love you to close down the episode today.
Yeah, everybody, I thank you so much for your patience while I've been enjoying myself, sort of living off the grid. Certainly, it doesn't mean I've forgotten about any of you. I appreciate everything that you guys do when you're here. Consider subscribing. Michael's done a phenomenal job of filling my shoes. This was something that I proposed to him. He was, of course, reluctant. He's got a million things going on, extremely successful individual. And ultimately, he and I are birds of a feather on the subject matter of wealth creation. We believe in the similar types of strategies, and his insight around that is always going to be uniquely valuable compared to mine. And so make sure that you guys tune in, turn on those bell notifications, of course, because it'll obviously alert you when a post is uploaded. And I'm going to continue to be on the channel as often as I can be. Got a lot of subject matter for you and a lot of specific evidence of what I've been talking about here on this episode today. This has been a wide view update, but ultimately I want to get into the weeds on it and really show you guys the details behind how it's all coming together so that you can consider doing similar things. I'm here to tell you that I did everything I'm talking about today by following everything I've talked about for 10 years on this channel. It is 100% practicing what I teach, and it's given me literal freedom of retirement. I feel retired, even though when I'm trying to figure out what to do with my time and it ends up becoming, okay, hey, I just choose to work. So people might say, oh, you're not retired because you're work. No, that's what I'm choosing to do with that moment. And so if you guys are looking for that type of life, then this channel will continue to be as relevant as ever before. All the videos on this channel are still as relevant as they ever were when they were posted. It is extremely important that you continue to do your research, put in the time to study, and then take action on something. Figure out what it is that falls in line with your specific game plan from both the liability management side of the balance sheet, as well as the income and asset and growth side of the balance sheet, and take action on both sides. And when you do that, you will see a very special result called cash flow stacking come out of it. And cash flow stacking will provide you the opportunity to have freedom. Freedom, folks. So whatever you choose to do with your freedom is entirely up to you. For me, for now, it's RVing and living life on the road. It's a blast. Me and Kellyanne and the two pups are having a great time. And I'm hoping to cut a few more videos while I have the service and ability. And even tell you guys how it is I'm traveling now at no charge, staying in some of the most beautiful areas. Mike, I'm going to send you some of this. Pop that B-roll up there for me. Show these guys what I'm staying on, these beautiful, beautiful areas throughout the country right now. And it's costing me nothing other than the cost of gasoline and the insurance costs on the truck. But other than that, it's an incredible life, Mike. So thanks for having me back on, man. I really appreciate everything you're doing. And guys, make sure you stay tuned for more great content from the both of us. It will serve you well as long as you use it.
Brother, always love having you on the channel, obviously, when we get the opportunity to do so. I think we've got another phenomenal episode coming up here soon, talking about Airbnb. We're going to obviously talk about your experiences with that more in depth. So appreciate your time. Love you, bro. And we will be chatting soon.
Thanks, everybody.